All right, it's time to talk with our featured guest, Dr. Ryan Hungate. Ryan, how's it going, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Nice. Thank you so much for coming on and being part of the podcast. Now, can you start by sharing something that you're passionate about, but I know you have a great deal of interest in, which is the billing process, but transparency in the billing process. Why is it so crucial for building patient trust, and what initially inspired you to focus on this aspect of dental practice management?
Yeah, look, I'm an orthodontist, and so I've been through all of this, and I think any doctor who's either owned a practice or worked in a practice, or honestly even been a patient, has suffered the consequences of a lack of transparency in the billing process. I don't know many other places on earth where you can go to buy something and you say, "Hey, how much is this going to cost?" They go, "I don't know," and then you go, "Yeah, let's do it." It just doesn't exist. Like imagine
Yeah.
like Prime Day, if that was a new feature on the checkout for Amazon, they'd probably have the worst Prime Day ever if they said, "I think this is going to cost $30." You would not
Mhm.
hit buy now. Yet that is how doctors function. Medical is a little bit better. Pharmacies really figured it out. Why the heck can we not figure this out? That's the
Mhm.
real question. Why the heck can we not figure this out? Because the technology is finally there. So the passion for me comes from realizing that the technology is finally met where we actually have a need and we can fix this really big problem that we're having now.
So then this has been something that you felt around what time?
Now, I mean, that's
Yeah.
the funny part. It's like we're at this point of where, because of COVID, we had
Mhm.
this spike in wages. Okay. And I think that a lot of the payers, the insurance companies out there, were feeling okay with just making you call in and they were answering phone calls, right? That's just how it was being done. And they were okay with that. Now imagine that those salaries doubled, right? To answer phone calls. Now all of a sudden the payers care. They have to answer those phone calls. It's the most expensive thing that they're running into on their day to day. Okay, you're combining that with the fact that our wages skyrocketed as well, right? The front of house people that are actually making the calls to the payers are going up. So everybody's going, "Oh my God, where did my margins go?" So all of a
Mhm.
sudden now you've got the payers more willing to open up their APIs or lack of, or just saying, "Hey, I will give you the information some way. I'm okay with that." You've got the front office going, "I need to get this in an easier way." So then all of a sudden, you've got a lot of really innovative companies, Henry Schein One being one of those, and a bunch of others out there that are going, "Oh my God, I see an opportunity. Let's go out there and connect it." And we want to do that in an easy to use fashion. So we obviously did it through Dentrix. We did it through our Eligibility Pro product, which we'll talk about. But basically, this is where the opportunity comes, where all of a sudden the need on both the business case and also the need on the practice, which by the way has been there since the 80s. Billing has been the number one problem in practices since the 1980s. And we've just never fixed it because honestly, you didn't have the want to fix it on the
Mhm.
other side, which is the payer side. And honestly, it's led to a love-hate relationship, maybe just a hate-hate relationship with doctors and their payers.
Interesting. Okay. So
Yeah.
then, how do you create a system that ensures patients never do feel blindsided by billing surprises, even when an unexpected treatment arises?
Yeah. So first of all, unexpected treatment is always going to arise. Unless you feel pain when you go to your dentist, nobody's going in there going, "Oh boy, I bet I'm going to have X, Y, and Z pop up out of nowhere from my exam." We just don't
Mhm.
know. So you're always going to be blindsided by a lot of these things. So if that's the case, then what we have to do is we have to be there to catch patients when they fall, right? We have to be there to say, "Look, here is exactly how your insurance is going to cover this." Because if I asked you how your insurance covers a filling on one of your molars, do you have any clue? It's not on your card.
Yeah.
It's not even on there. And even if it was, it would be as a category and not as a specific code because there's over 10,000 different specific codes. And then it's based off of all kinds of other things. So this is the part where the patient has no clue. We as doctors and practice owners have to be Sherpas in this moment, where we have to be professionals and understand that. Now, historically, this has been really, really, really difficult to understand. And we've said that we were experts, but really we're just guessing as good as we can as well, because we're making phone calls to insurance companies, we're logging into portals, we're looking at what's called EDI information, which is faxes or documents that we get directly from the payers. Yeah, faxes
Mhm.
are still a thing. And we make our best guess. That's not good enough anymore. We can get the data now. We can do really good math off of that. And we can tell the patient, this is what this is going to cost. And then we can help them into other avenues to help afford that, because nobody goes to the doctor hoping they can't afford to pay for their care.
Mhm.
Do you
Mhm.
imagine going to your regular physician and just saying, "Hey, tell me what's wrong with me. I feel sick. And then they tell you and you're like, nah, I don't want to take care of that. No, you go there because you want to feel better. It's the same thing with the dentist. So this is where if we go to them and say, look, let me help you with the third-party financing. Let me help you with in-house payment plans, maybe discount plans. We're ready with those tools over there. We just don't have the damn numbers to plug into those tools to figure out what the outcome should be.
Gotcha, man. Makes a lot of sense. So then how do you deal with it, Ryan, when there's the second opinion where they're like, oh, I have that too. I have that too. Oh, let me go get a second opinion. And you're trying to facilitate everything. You're like, no, we'll cover for this. We'll cover for that. But they still get that itch where it's like, dude, I think you're scamming me kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think we're the second opinion generation. That's one of those pieces. The only thing you can do is you can fight that with education by really showing them that you got the best data that they are possibly going to get. You give them an amazing experience, right? Now, the one thing they could always guess on is somebody else out there going to be as good of an experience and as smart and cheaper? That's the bet that they're making. That's a hard thing to do. Now, if you're utilizing things like third-party financing or in-house payment plans and making things more practical for them, you're probably going to get more yeses and acceptance to a more comprehensive treatment plan. It's just going to happen. There's other things out there like utilizing imaging AI, right? There's some really cool products like Vidya Health out there that can be a instant second opinion. You know, you can say, hey, look, it's not just me that thinks that you have a cavity on this tooth. The AI thinks that you have a cavity on this tooth as well. And you can kind of get that instant second opinion falling in there so you can start to reduce that. But no matter what, let's say that the person does leave. Let's say the person does go somewhere else. All you can do is have really good follow-up process automation with that. And we're even working on some really cool technology that not only presents them with their most comprehensive treatment plan that they should go through, they can go home, take that to their loved ones, take it to their spouse, whoever it might be they need to check with, and get that pat on the back that it's going to be okay. And then they need to be able to schedule directly from that as well. So they need to be able to look at it, show to them, okay, we're all in agreement as a family. I can sign it and schedule directly in from there. And then we can follow up, say, reminding them about that because look, life happens as well. So I think the majority of the time, the person does want to go with the person they came to first, especially if they have a good experience. But really, it's all about reminding them about the good experience they had just had and making it easy for them to actually schedule that treatment.
So then in your eyes, what's an amazing experience versus someone who thinks they're giving an amazing experience?
Great question. I think we think about experience as a nice looking waiting room, massage chairs, paraffin, waxes, the experience once you get in the office. I think a lot of us can be really nice clinicians and they can have really nice front desk teams and we can use the right diffuser to have the right scent. That's pretty easy to do. Maybe we have to update our office. So I think when we think of experience, we think of that. I think of it a little bit longer tail or even before the patient comes in. I look at it and think, was it incredibly easy to book my appointment? That's first. Was it incredibly easy to understand if my insurance is even taken in this office? What if you could even tell them that the exam, the x-rays, and the diagnosis is going to be completely covered by their insurance, guaranteed. Like this is the price. You're going to pay $20 out of pocket. The rest, I've seen your insurance and here's what your cost out of pocket's going to be. Before they walk in, there's some really cool practices out there like Tend and Dentology that are doing this right now with the data that we're able to provide them. Right. So this is really magic. This is that experience that I believe should be universal across the board. But then also when they're sitting in the chair, I think the number one reason that people don't say yes to treatment is not because they don't understand it. Maybe some of it's misunderstanding if you're not pitching it well as a doctor. So you need to really explain that well. But look, that's on us, right? That's on us as a practitioner. And I think we should be good at that. It comes down to, boy, oh boy, value, right? Is what you just said, does that make so much sense to me that I know that I need it and that I believe that it will benefit me for what I'm paying? And if I can say with the most certainty, this is what you're going to be paying out of pocket. Here's what it's going to cost you long-term if you finance this, and here's the outcome that we're going to get. You bundle all three of those together, you're going to watch the national average, which is 30% on treatment acceptance, which it's crazy that it's that low. Think about that, right? Unless we're just universally as dentists proposing a bunch of terrible treatment, which we're not, that means that we have 70% of the time failed on convincing a patient that this is the right outcome for them. That sucks. I believe that that's a majority of the time based off of they just didn't see the value, right? Or they didn't understand the value. So if we can make it more that, hey, look, your insurance is taking care of it, X, Y, and Z. This is your out-of-pocket cost. Even your out-of-pocket cost can be as low as $13 a month. That's the kind of interaction that we have to start having with our patients. So they trust us and they say yes to more treatment and they say yes to the comprehensive treatment plan that they should be accepting.
Interesting, man. Yeah, you're right. That is super low as far as 30%. So then what have you seen, Ryan, where it's like, I mean, I'm sure you have friends, you have colleagues and everything where you see really, really common mistakes that they make that are super minor when it comes to the treatment presentation and so forth.
I think there's some major ones too. It's interesting. When I was going through my residency, we were even taught like when we would propose a specific treatment plan, it's almost like they would act surprised, right? A person would come in for orthodontics. They would sit down. I would do an exam on them. I would propose a $6,000 treatment plan. Now it's like more like $7,800 or something like that. And they would just be blown away. It'd be like, oh my God, $6,000. And we would immediately go into this mindset to be like, how dare you wasted my time? We're like entitled that, of course, you know that braces cost $6,000. Why would you have sat down in my chair not knowing that it's $6,000? Because we do it every day. We're presenting this treatment costs every day. An implant costs $3,000. Of course it costs $3,000. How do you not know it's costing $3,000? Whereas if you're a patient and it's your first implant, you're not making rent this month, right? Like $100 or $200 as a surprise is a life-changing amount of money for like 90% of the population. And we act like it's nothing. That's one big problem. So I think that we need to be more empathetic to what we're saying. The second side of that, maybe the flip of that coin, is that we also need to believe in ourselves, right? We need to believe that our treatment that we're presenting is worth it. It's pretty intimidating, especially for people who are doing like all on four arches and we're presenting $30,000 treatment plans or $40,000 treatment plans. That's pretty intense to sell Lexus's chairside, right? Like we're asking to park a car in their mouth. And then we're like acting like it's not a big deal. Think about the last time you bought a car. It was a big decision, you know, going through that. And you had a salesman as part of that process. Whereas we're a doctor. And look, I know that sales and dentistry is a bad word, but it shouldn't be, right? If we're bad at sales, we go out of business. It's just that simple. Really, we're just bad at talking to patients is what that is. So I think that we should believe in our treatment, right? We should believe that our stuff is worth it. So one of the things that can help that is that if we get a more transparent view of what the real cost to the patient is when we're presenting it. Because a lot of times we say, hey, look, it's going to cost $7,800. And they go, oh. But if I go, yeah, but your insurance takes care of $5,000. So now we're talking about $2,300. That makes a lot more sense. Oh, and by the way, that $2,300 can be put into care credit. And your overall monthly cost is about $34. And now all of a sudden you go from, holy crap, to this isn't that bad. I might be able to afford it over time to $34. What else can I do? Let's add whitening on top of that. And so this is the part where we have to believe in ourselves to present comprehensive treatment plans much, much, much more. Look, I'm a culprit of this where I want a yes out of a patient. So what would happen is I know that they need clear aligners. I know that they need whitening, and I know that they have a filling that they have to do. And sometimes if I'm feeling like a little bit lazy or I'm feeling a little bit nervous about presenting the other big tiered stuff, I'm like, yeah, look, we could always do whitening or we could always do clear aligners. And I think it's something you should consider in the future, but we really just need to take care of that filling today. What do you think that patient's going to say? Is like, okay, let's do the filling. Well, how much does everything cost? How much is the filling? Oh, the filling is $230. Yeah, let's do the filling. I'll think about the other stuff. Whereas if you start to bundle that all together and you have good transparent pricing, you give great financing options right there, all in one beautiful picture for them to understand. The likelihood of them saying, dude, I want to adopt a plan to perfection instead of the plan to just take care of the little thing that I had today.
Interesting. Transparent pricing then. You mentioned that. So then what are some specific indicators or signals that suggest the practice is not being transparent enough in its billing process?
It's almost impossible to be today. One of the things that would be very telling for a patient is if a practice doesn't truly break down what a patient portion is. What I mean by that is like what the patient is paying out of pocket right now and what the insurance is going to be paying. They should be able to really break that down for you in a treatment plan and show you one versus the other. And then you should say, okay, look, if the total cost is $1,000, your insurance is going to pay $800 and you are going to pay $200 out of pocket. You need to be able to see that. And you need to be able to understand that. And you should be able to understand it before you say yes, honestly. And this is hard because what I'm talking about is ideal state. Okay. So it's not that the doctor is trying to keep something from you, by the way, if they don't show you that. It's just that they didn't do the work ahead of time where a person at the front desk called and waited on hold for 20 to 30 minutes and then spoke to somebody and hand wrote it down and then transfer that later to the PMS so the math can be done. right? That's literally the order they go in. Or they go to a portal, they log in, they search for a specific code, and they type each specific code into the ledger, into the coverage tables so that the math can be done. So let's say that you missed one code or missed one category. The math just won't be done. So it'll say, hey, look, here's what my regular cost is on this, but I don't know what your specific insurance is paying on this, Michael. Usually it's around 80%, but I don't know. And this is where you get patients going, when can you get that to me?
Yeah.
And they're immediately out the door and they're gone. So what are the chances of you getting them back and taking off work again? It's like really low. Or even better yet, where do you find the time for your front desk to go through the pile of people that you just did that to? I don't even know when that starts. Like, talk about a hot lead pile that nobody touches. Right now, the average practice has over $1 million of planned treatment that hasn't been completed. That's just the average. Okay. And that's just, we know that they have it. We know that we need to complete it. So you're sitting on a gold mine in these practices. If you just had the people power to reach out to those people, or if you could convert them right there on the spot, it's huge. So those are probably the red flags that you look for. But again, it's not the doctor's fault. We need better tools like the eligibility provider that we just brought out, where we can just walk in that day, know that all of my patients have been verified, all of their eligibility data has been automatically transferred into the coverage tables, so that all I have to do with the doctor is say, hey, they need these 3 things. I open up the treatment presenter, the map has already magically been done for me. And the only thing I maybe have to do is to push it into a third-party financing situation, and I'm ready to go. That's how it should be.
Interesting. And how often would you say treatment plan changes unexpectedly? For example, you do the billing, you present them something, right? But then you're starting to work and then it's like, oh, things are changing. Things are changing. And you know what I mean? That's when the patient's like, well, what the heck? You told me this. And
that's more, I'm sure, like endodontists probably see it more, where like they'll think that they're having one situation, they get in, like the tooth is absolutely exploded, or doctors that are like in the middle of filling. So it happens more often than you think. It's probably the exception still and not the rule. We're usually pretty good at diagnosing. The place where you get it, where it's happening quite a bit, is more if you didn't do good eligibility research before the patient sat down and you say, Michael, I think that your filling is going to be covered at 80%. And then what happens is maybe you didn't look that you hit a maximum, or maybe you didn't see that you hit your deductible, or maybe you didn't see that that specific code is a downgrade. Then what happens is that you might have done the work. And this is what really pisses patients off. And you collected, let's say, $60 from you for your patient portion, but you did bad eligibility work. And then all of a sudden the insurance company pays the claim. And they say, oh, I'm not paying you the $200. I'm going to pay you $150. Now I have to come back to you via mail and say, hey, can I get another $50? And you go, what the heck is this $50 bill I just got in the mail? What do you do when you receive a $50 random bill in the mail? Do you stop what you're doing and go pay it?
No.
No.
You complain
let it
about
sit
it,
there on the
man.
counter. You wait for the next 3 bills to come, right?
Yeah, that's true. Interesting. Okay. So you mentioned there's a new tool you've launched, right? Specifically that eliminates this or streamlines it, automates it. What is it?
It does. Yeah. So our goal is to completely eliminate it, right? And right now we released a product called Eligibility Essentials and Eligibility Pro. Okay. So basically what this does is within the Dentrix PMS, it looks at the patient's insurance information, automatically goes out to patient portals, automatically goes out to like the EDI information that the insurance company has already passed. It standardizes it so that one person at the front desk doesn't have to understand 700 different formats, but then also it writes the data automatically back to the coverage table. That's the magic part about this, because half the battle is finding the information and spending 30 to 40 minutes per patient finding it, but then getting as extensive information as you can. The next lift is writing it back to the PMS solutions so that the math is magically done for you. Okay. This is done automatically by Eligibility Pro. Okay. Eligibility Pro and Eligibility Essentials does this. It writes it back to the coverage tables. So now all you have to do is go be a doctor, go treatment plan, and you're just going to know the pricing behind all this. We right now today, Michael, we cover about 70 to 80% of all the different payers out there that you're going to use every single day. We get 99% of all the different codes you're going to use too. That's covered. Maximum, history, limitations, downgrades, like I was talking about, all that is ready to go for you immediately. This is stuff that used to take hours and hours. It saves the average front desk team around just over 6 hours per week of work. Talk to any front desk team out there, Michael, ask them what their biggest pain in their ass is. It is eligibility verification. The second place is usually ERAs and billing. It might be tied up there, but this is one of those things where I talk about it's the unicorn. It's the beginning of a revenue cycle management renaissance, in my opinion. It's pretty
interesting, man. That's really good.
Yeah.
So then, I guess, how does this software help? I'm sure it helps reduce claim denials and improve
it's insane.
First class approval rates, right? Things like that. Better verification too, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's all verification. So basically, it takes care of the verification problem. So you're never going to accidentally do treatment on somebody that just doesn't have insurance or it's not up to date. So that's gone. That's just taken care of now. So that's a thing of the past if you're using Eligibility Pro or Eligibility Essentialist. When it comes to claims, you're now filing the claim. You're collecting the right amount of money up front. That's the biggest piece here. If you look at places where they have giant amounts of AR, 15%, you see some places. Heck, some places that are like above 15, which, oh my God. Those are the places where they actually don't do any eligibility checks whatsoever. What they do is they roll the dice, Michael, and they just go, if you say I have insurance, here's the card. They go, okay, cool. They copy the card for later to file the claim. But what they do is they just say, hey, you know what? I'll send you the invoice for what you owe later on. You've experienced this at a doctor's office. I guarantee you. They just go, no, don't worry about it. We'll get you later. And you're just like, and you do that thing where you're like, okay. And you feel like it's free, but now you're worried that you're going to get a bill for like $800 and you're just terrified. But at the same time, they just put the crown in my mouth and I don't give a darn. They can't come to my house and yank it out of my mouth. So this is where it also fixes that, because if I'm collecting the correct patient portion up front, I don't have an AR problem, right? I know that I collected the right amount from the patient up front. I file my claim correctly. I get paid the right amount of money and it reconciles on the ledger. If you're doing this all right, you're going to have some little problems here and there. Your AR should drop to less than 1% with this stuff.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
Man.
It's magic.
So it minimizes AR. So the thing is, this literally helps you with everything, but we still have to, quote unquote, sell. Or not even quote unquote, just like we have to sell, right? I know you mentioned, hey man, you got to believe in yourself. And that's something we kind of lack into. And it's easy to, as our listeners are probably listening to this, like, I'm going to believe in myself. But then that moment when then, we got to actually tell them something, we chicken out sometimes.
Of course.
Right? What do you recommend we do to help with that feeling? Scripts? Or is there a specific thing that we should dedicate that to another team member who can do it and be like, hey, I just want to be out of that whole process completely?
That's one thing that we do. So it's funny, orthodontists do this really well. We have treatment coordinators, and you will actually see amazing ortho offices versus semi-awesome orthodontist offices versus how good their treatment coordinator is, which makes sense. If you go to like a great SaaS company out there, like a great software company, if you've got an awesome sales team, awesome software company. If you've got a terrible sales team, but an awesome software, terrible software company. So like sales cures all illnesses. That's like the line in almost any business.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like when you look at this, I think there's one, you could outsource it to your treatment coordinator. And honestly, I recommend that because a doctor should be doing the doctoring. You're going to make more money. That's where you should be focusing. And your treatment coordinator can be selling. That's just like the Henry Ford style of doing things. That's why I would recommend it. It's funny. I like speaking in front of giant audiences. I love these podcasts. It's a lot of fun for me. I don't feel nervous at all. In fact, I feel like excited about it. But I truly believe it's because I am confident in what I'm saying. Anytime I've ever felt nervous in my life, it's when I've been unprepared. It's that simple. Nerves are just the feeling of being unprepared for the situation. That's what I tell myself, at least. If that's the case, if you are nervous to sell something, if you're nervous to talk about a treatment, if you're nervous to say, hey, patient, you need X, Y, and Z and not just X, okay? It's because you feel underprepared. You don't know how much that thing costs, right? Because what's the obvious next thing? When I say, hey, Michael, you need braces, man. Here's what your teeth look like today. They're all over the place. They can be beautiful tomorrow. And I show you what that, by the way, your teeth look fantastic. But like, this is the thing where I can show you your future. What's the next obvious thing you're going to ask? How much does it cost? Right? And if I don't feel super confident about telling you that next number, I'm going to be nervous the whole time talking about it. It's going to naturally happen. So when I'm getting ready to bring you a comprehensive treatment plan, I need to get perio done on you first. And after that, we're going to do a bone graft. And after that, we're going to do an implant. Then we're going to do a beautiful crown. Then after that, we're going to do some clear aligners to just make this thing absolutely beautiful. For me to say that with confidence, I need to understand how much your insurance is going to pay, how much you're going to have to pay. And then even better yet, I need to be able to catch you with maybe third-party financing options that makes this sensible to you, that doesn't make it so you have to live on Ritz crackers for the next 6 months. I believe that's how we can become better at proposing treatment to our patients and get that increased yes to a comprehensive plan.
Do you immediately say like, hey, it's going to be 10,000, but with the care credit and then with this and then that, you kind of narrow it down? Yeah. Or do you just give them the option like it's $34 a month? That's it.
The second one. The reason that I say that is that when was the last time you saw a car commercial? They're like, come on down to the Beamer dealership and grab your car for $70,000.
That's true, man. Yeah.
As long as I've been alive, I've never seen that in my entire life. So that means that the people who are actually doing good selling and getting people to buy into large number purchases have figured this out long before we did. But what do? We always say, oh no, it's going to be real simple, Mrs. Sanchez. It's going to be $9,800. And we're surprised when they just are floored because nobody ever presents bills for that ever again. It's always $54 a month. It's always $167 a month every time. And then what do? They look at that. They're like, okay, I can maybe do $167 a month. Is there a discount if I pay it off at once? Yeah, the total comes to $9,800. And if you pay cash, I'll give you a 20% discount or something like that, right? So they're obviously going to ask what the total is and what the months are. And you don't want to leave them hanging where it's like it's $167 a month the next 98 months, because then you've got to make them break out a calculator. But I like to lead with a sensible number, because as soon as you say something like 9,800 or 4,000 or 3,700, they immediately shut down. You can watch them in their face. They go, okay, how bad is this? What are you actually proposing for me? And then you're just an uphill battle from there on out.
Interesting, man. I like that. Yeah. So then what makes to you an awesome sales team?
First of all, it's mindset, right? That's the biggest piece. If you go in there and you don't assume the sale, and I hate calling this all sales, and I'm sure it's going to turn a bunch of doctors off to just hear, oh, he's saying sales. Think about treatment acceptance. Okay, that's fine. But if you don't assume that patient is going to say yes to your comprehensive treatment plan, you've lost, right? You've lost. At the end of the day, you will not be confident in what you say. You have to assume the sale. It's funny. I watched Glenn Ross last night, and it doesn't need to be that, right? It doesn't need to be coffee is for closers. It doesn't need to be any of that stuff. It does need to be where you believe in yourself so much that you are the one teaching that patient what's going on, so that on the other side, they do believe that you are there to help them. If they feel if it's too salesy too, like that's no good. The best salesman I've ever met in my life become your best friend, establish trust. And then later on, as they're walking away, they're like, oh, by the way, I have X, Y, and Z if you want it. And the person goes, yeah, of course I'll buy that, right? Of course I will, right? Yeah. They become friends with you. We're actually really good at this as doctors because we like to talk. It's just that simple. We like to talk to patients. If you are a doctor that doesn't like to talk to patients, you might be in the wrong profession. Right. I honestly think that if most of the best doctors on earth get the patients that have the best health and the patients that have the best outcomes are more the Patch Adams that become your friend and establish trust. Maybe not friend, but like they at least establish trust with you. You can either be the, hey, I'm the doctor, you're the patient. I'm not a big fan of that. I more like to say like, look, I'm the doctor, I'm your friend. I'm going to make sure that you feel so informed about this, that we're on the same level, that you understand why you need this treatment. You understand what the outcome is going to be, so that when you're saying yes to it, you are comfortable financially. That's the job that these products can do now, right? We can at least make them comfortable financially, but they should also be comfortable with me as the doctor as well at the end of the day. So those are the best sales teams I've ever seen, is where they establish trust. They're super confident and assume that sale before they even go in there.
How do you do that? How do you specifically establish trust very fast? How long is your new patient visit?
How long is a new patient visit? 30 minutes.
Okay, so in 30 minutes, how do you establish that strong trust fast?
I usually try to find one thing that I can bond with them on. What were you doing today? Right? What did you do this last weekend? What's your favorite thing? And I've always found that those conversationalists, they can be dangerous 1 level deep. You don't have to be 2 levels deep. That maybe you've snowboarded before and it's not your favorite thing. Maybe this person's a professional snowboarder, but you fell on your face one time snowboarding. I mesh on that. Cool. I hate snowboarding. You love it. You're crazy. Cool. Let's get to talking. Golf. You said you just started golfing, right? My dad was a golf pro and I played college golf, but we could bond really quick on the college golf side of things. And now we're off and running. And then, you insert stuff as you go, but I really tried to find that one thing that I can bond with the patient about and vibe with them on, get on that same plane. Sometimes you'll run into an introvert patient and that's a little bit harder. But in that case, maybe it's more like, hey, let me be really appreciative of your time. I'm going to get you in and out of here. You're going to be incredibly comfortable and you're going to tell them exactly what's going to happen. Now I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let you listen to your music and chill. I'm going to let you know when it's all done. It's just one of those things where you just got to feel out the patient and see what you can connect with them on. But I'm a huge fan of connecting with them on a couple of things. One thing at least, establishing that trust. And then after that, just building on it.
Your whole team does this too?
As much as we try to. Yeah, we try to. Like, I'm not saying that anybody's perfect out there, whether it's selling software, whether it's working in the office, or we're just trying to give that great experience. And I always tell people, when you're in your office, would you have enjoyed the experience you just had? If you can't say with a resounding yes, you would have enjoyed it, you got to change that. Same thing with when you go through onboarding into your office. When was the last time that you actually tried to schedule an appointment in your own office? Try it. Was it fun? Did you really enjoy it? Was it easy? Did you like calling in instead of going online and booking? Even better yet, go home, wait till 8 p.m. and try to schedule an appointment in your own office. Can you do it? Or are you emailing a form in? Do you feel confident when that form got emailed in? Or should you have probably been able to book the appointment just like you can when you're using OpenTable and feeling confident about it? It's one of those things where I really challenge a lot of doctors out there to put themselves in the patient's shoes. And we see, oh man, my treatment acceptance rate is 30%. Why is it 30%? If you really start to break it down, you go, okay, do I give them exact pricing on all of my treatments? And if I can't say yes, okay, that's probably a factor. Did I feel like I was rushed? Did the hygienist walk in and do this 5 times while I was talking with the patient, really trying to connect with them while trying to sell them something that costs $2,700? That probably wasn't the best experience. But if I'm the patient, I look up and I go, look, this doctor doesn't care about me. Now, granted, that's also, I need to be running on time so the hygienist doesn't have to do this to me. There's just a lot to it where we really need to start taking steps back and putting ourselves in the patient's seat and trying to experience it. And if we can, in a resounding way, say, boy, I really enjoy my experience. That's how I would want to go to the doctor. I feel like I'm getting all the information I would need. I would say yes to this plan. I always say that when I build software for doctors, the level that I hold myself to is, would I buy it? Would I actually break out my credit card at the end of me making this and buy it? And I haven't always been able to say that. Sometimes I'll get something out the door and it's hard for me to sell too. Like I'll look at it and go, not yet. And I know that I have to get it out there because that's just an iterative process or whatever it might be. And that's back when I had a startup. That's what I would do. I would just get it out there. And there was always this inflection moment where I was like, I'd break out the credit card now. And that's when I knew that it was over. I knew that I was going to be able to sell this to thousands of people. I was going to be able to sign up thousands of offices. It was not a big deal. It should be the same thing in your office, right? When you go, I'd break out the card right now. It's just a different thing. Like, I don't know if you've ever pitched a startup to a friend before, but the first thing the friend will do is be like, dude, sign me up. Let's go. Like, dude, you're going to kill it, Michael. This is the best idea I've ever heard of in my entire life. What you do at the end of that to really test it is go, cool, man. Can I see your credit card? I'll sign you up right now. Watch what happens.
It changes,
you're going to know if they really believe. Yeah. You're going to know if they really believed you real quick, right? Yeah. If they're like, can I see it? Wait, get it in a couple other offices, then I'll try it in mine. It immediately stops them. Like they're dabbing you up like crazy. And then all of a sudden you're like, cool, hit me with that credit card. Let's go. Everything changes, right? So that's why I say, truly put yourself in your patient's shoes. And you'll think about your practice a little bit different.
Interesting, man. I never thought about it that way where you're looking at the feel of how everything is going, right? I've always seen it as like, it works, operations are going, right? You can submit it, you can automate it, but the feel of it, interesting. I like that
Steve Jobs was a big proponent of this. They always say some of the best entrepreneurs of all time have this plague where they can almost literally close their eyes and envision perfectly what a customer feels like while they're opening the device, while they're holding the device in their hands, right? Steve Jobs walked around, I think it was like 3 or 4 or 5 months with a block of wood with the exact weight of the iPhone in his pocket to see if he could tolerate it before he actually came out with it. He wanted to sit and feel like he was in those shoes and he could truly envision it. And I think the more that we do that as owners, as purveyors of goods, you're going to have great outcomes because you're going to be really critical of yourself.
Real quick, I wanted to ask, you experience times when you're presenting treatment, you're talking to the patient, and you're either unprepared or lazy. It's like the end of the day, you're kind of like, all right, you know what? I met my goal. You know, you're just like, it's okay. I'm going to short my goal a little bit. It's fine. You're just tired. You're lazy.
Yeah.
Is there a way to combat that or we just got to accept it?
You can't be perfect all the time. I always think of it as it's not fair to the patient if I'm not giving my attempt at a 10 every time. If I'm sitting down with the first patient, you're going to have me at my energy level as this. Now, I naturally have caffeine flowing through my veins, if you can't tell, right? That's just my personality. It's hard for me to comprehend people that aren't like that. But I'm just excited about life. So it's easier for me to sit down with the patient at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day to keep that same level. But there are times where the day has beat you down and it's tough. So if that's the case, I always say, look, this person is paying me as much as the first person was. I got to give them everything. I think it's the way that T Swift probably feels when she's going out there an hour 3, right? And show 300 or whatever it might be. Like, I just keep going. By the way, if you haven't been to Taylor Swift concert, it's freaking awesome. You absolutely have to go just to see somebody perform like that for 3 hours. But anyway, like, it's one of those things where I think it's like that, where we owe it to them to give them that effort, to give them our best, because otherwise they sense that. You might walk away being like, yeah, they didn't notice that I was tired. They noticed. They saw it out of the corner of your eye. They saw you signaling to your assistant, go ahead and start vacuuming op 3. They won't hear you sweep. Yeah, they do. They hear you start to sweep. Like everybody hears it. Well, how do you feel in a restaurant if somebody starts to vacuum while you're still in it? Like,
that's when I look around and I'm like, we're the only one.
So they're probably doing it for a reason, like, get the F out of here. We want to go home. That's the signal that you're dropping if you don't give 100%. So that's kind of how I think about it. I put myself in those shoes where if my kid was in that chair, I would want that for the person treating my kid. So that's how I hold it. Like I said, it's not perfect every time. It's the same thing in any business, honestly, right? When we're building software, I'm in meetings back to back, at Henry Schein 1. And sometimes at the end of the day, you're like, I just got to get off this last meeting. But maybe that last meeting is the most important thing that you're going to talk about all day. You got to give it your all. You really have to give it your all, whether you like it or not. Not perfect every time, but you got to try.
I like that, man. So then bringing it back, how can a practice implement preventative measures to avoid these financial pitfalls? And one of the ways would be with what?
Eligibility Pro. So the really cool thing is if you're a Dentrix user out there, congrats. You get Eligibility Pro, meaning that, not just congrats and you've made a great decision, but like at the same time, it's one of those things where if you're on the most recent version of Dentrix, it's the first product of its kind where we're actually just rolling it out to our people, which is pretty neat.
Nice.
Same thing with Ascend. You're just getting it. So it's a self-onboarded, first self-onboarding product. You can use it a la carte where you can just click it and request it and get pro results. And then on top of that, we started rolling it out on September 1st. Everybody will be rolled out. Literally everybody will be rolled out by beginning of December. If you want to jump the line, call us. You can call Dentrix, you can call your rep, and you can jump the line. You can roll out right now. So that's one of those pieces. It just automates it. For the people out there that aren't on Dentrix, I'm so sorry. But at the same time, really, you just got to get your processes down with revenue cycle out there. There's some other good platforms out there that are starting to try to do this. They're not deeply integrated, so that kind of stinks. So they don't typically write back, and that's half the battle. But a lot of them will read. There's some really nice ones out there. So I'd recommend, if people are using Open Dental or EagleSoft one, I'd recommend you switch. But at the same time, if you're not going to do that, it's not a big deal. Look for something out there that can help you with your eligibility process. Your front desk is absolutely miserable. They are, right? Whether they bring it up every day, they do not like this. I promise you that turnover happens because of it. Nobody stretches in the morning and goes, man, I can't wait to go verify 30 patients' insurances. That's not what gets them out of bed. So help your front desk out. You will also start to get your margin back. We need to start looking at processes that we lost during COVID. Okay. So we lost those wages. We're never going to get them back. It's not like somebody's just going to produce more assistants and more hygienists tomorrow. And because of that, we're going to pay them less. No. We might be able to lock it, but you're not just going to watch that over time come down. So if that's the case, then the only place we can do that is by automating more, turning one person into 3, okay? Augmenting them, making them bionic. And this is one of those processes where my goal is to automate 85% of the revenue cycle management process. I believe I can do that. Happy path. I believe I can auto-verify 100% of your patients. I believe that I can then process claims and then automatically post 85% if you pass, right? And then flag for you easily to follow up on the other 15%. And then I also believe, Michael, that one day as we're creating more of these rules along the way, you will stop picking payers, your insurance companies, based off of how much they reimburse you. And I believe you will start picking them based off of how much work it is to administer their plan.
That'd be nice.
It's going to change. It'll be cool. They'll start having to adopt standards because think about it, right now, everybody's terrible. I base it off of their reimbursement rate. But if I can start to base it on, say, hey, look, MetLife has adopted these really cool standards. They're providing great eligibility information in a standardized way to me. They're allowing me to file claims instantly. They're allowing me to gather ERAs and automatically reconcile it on the ledger. And the plumbers union, who doesn't have a portal over here and isn't going to help me on this, maybe I don't accept it until they hop on board of a better technology platform, because it cost me an arm and a leg to go out and wait on hold for 40 minutes, call them, screw it up, piss off the patient. I might as well have just stuck with the MetLife people.
Yeah. No, man, makes a lot of sense. Interesting. Love it, man. Okay, so one of the last questions I wanted to ask you, and Claire even pinged this, and she's like, I want you to ask him this. So shout out to you, Claire. Time travel. If you could go back in time and give your starting out self one piece of advice, but it can't be business related, what would it be?
Always trust your gut. And the reason I say that is that no matter what, you might be wrong, right? So you absolutely, your gut might be, a pile of idiots telling you what to do. But at the same time, you will still feel better at the end of it, even if you end up wrong. There's been so many times where I've been sitting there in the room being like, I just don't know if this is going to work out. I don't know if this is the right decision. I think it's a bad decision. I think we should do this instead. And you will always know your business better than anybody else, right? It's just that simple. You will always know your business better than anybody else. So that's one of those things where you end up being right, but you went with somebody else's opinion. You will never be so pissed off. It will just ruin your day. And especially if your business was dependent on it or something really bad happens at the end of it, I think it's just because of the way you can sway your business one way or the other. But you always feel better by just going with your gut on those things. And you can also make faster decisions and you fail faster in that case too.
I love it, man. Awesome, Ryan. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure. But before we say goodbye, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Head over to henryshine1.com, dentrix.com. You can check us out there. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram, wherever you want to find me. I'm always doing some podcast or something like that. But otherwise, we'd love to talk with you. Go to dentrix.com, reach out to Henry Shine One, reach out to your rep, and let's talk about eligibility and get this revenue cycle management renaissance on its way.
Nice. Awesome. So that's going to be in the show notes below. And Ryan, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure, and we'll hear from you soon.
Thanks so much.